So Renfield tells the story of Renfield, Dracula's tormented sidekick who is compelled to carry out all of his master's orders. He is, nevertheless, eager to see whether there is life outside the shadow of the Prince of Darkness after generations of slavery. Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Devin Hollister, and today I'm very excited to do a quick review with you about the new Nicolas Cage movie, Renfield. Plenty of good stuff to talk about this movie. This movie was really good. I was able to see it at an early showing last night, and I was super hyped to see Nicolas Cage play as one of our favorite, movie icons of all time, Count Dracula. I love Nick Cage movies, especially Willy's Wonderland when he's fighting those animatronics, and he didn't say a word that entire movie. That movie was really good. And now with this new movie that he has in Renfield, he was one of the biggest expectations I had for this movie because it's Nick Cage. You can't have a great Nick Cage movie about Nick Cage, you know? Sorry, I know I just weirded that. I don't know what I just said. But you guys get the point. So without further ado, not going to go on forever. Let's talk about the new Nick Cage movie, Renfield. So as with that, we'll start with the positives. Of course, the main positive is Nicolas Cage as Dracula. He brought a really great performance as Dracula. He was very funny, great makeup, and he had a good presence as a main villain in the entire film. I love the certain scenes where at the beginning of the film, no major spoilers, but it's nothing crazy, but he is weakened at first in the movie, and they do so much. They have this zombified looking, burnt looking makeup all on him, and it's really good. It's really well done, and the prosthetic teeth that he's got, they really did an awesome job, the makeup team, with how they transformed Nicolas Cage into Dracula. Of course, Nick Cage, he has the best lines, the best jokes in the entire movie. Some of the best lines are given in the dialogue of Count Dracula and Renfield. As a matter of fact, some of the best scenes, the best scenes in the movie are between Renfield and Dracula. They kind of have even though they're slave and master relationship, I kind of got father-son vibes from it. I really liked it just because of the way they interacted with each other before they started to become true enemies in the movie. Then of course we've got the main character, Renfield, played by Nicholas Hoult. I thought he was also a great character. He had great motivation for why exactly he wanted to be free. They gave a nice little backstory on Renfield and exactly why he was a part, working for Dracula, and the way he develops throughout the film, trying to slowly gain his freedom, and how it ties in with the main themes of the movie, which I'll get to in a second, but how he works his way against Dracula because he wants to finally be free. He wants to fight for his freedom against the one that's enslaved him for generations. I thought it was really great, and of course Nicholas Hoult's acting very good. I thought he perfectly fit this character, and how he also had a great sense of humor. He also had a great sense of action, many good action scenes that he performed well in. And I thought this movie really did tell a good tale about Renfield, and I'm hoping maybe we'll see more in the future of this character. Another great thing about this film is the overall message of the story that it shares with the audience, which is taking control of the toxicity and stressful elements of our lives, while also taking full responsibility for the actions we've committed. It relates to the original story of Renfield from the book. In his 1897 book, Dracula, Bram Stoker created the character Renfield. He is a patient at an asylum who is under the vampire's influence. The notion of lunacy and the psychological ramifications of being influenced by a strong and wicked force are the key themes of Renfield. Renfield serves as a metaphor for the concept of a person who is obsessed with power and control to the point of insanity. He is initially depicted as a patient with hallucinations, but as the narrative develops, it becomes evident that Dracula is manipulating him. The tale also addresses the themes of manipulation and control, as Dracula tries to influence others and dictate their behavior. The overall message of Renfield is the need to retain control over one's thoughts and behavior, and the risks of giving into obsessions and cravings. They have the same situation here in this film, but instead of hopelessness, we get hopefulness. This version of Renfield takes control over his life, and the obsession with power that he once had cost him his family and freedom. Overall, this movie had a great theme. This movie also has a great blend between three different genres, which is comedy, action, and horror. The action sequences and especially the horror sequences were done very well. The action part, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like nothing stood out really about it. It was just a simple, just beat up everyone. There was plenty of blood. It was a lot of CGI stuff, but I thought it was pretty well done. It wasn't too distracting, and plus the action sequences were done pretty well. The horror sequences, on the other hand, were done especially well, especially when it came to Count Dracula and his little lair that he had in the abandoned hospital. I thought it was done really well, and I thought Nicolas Cage was actually pretty scary in this movie in certain moments. And so I thought all that was done pretty great. But speaking of those three main genres, they are also part of my mix, because the comedy part, I have to say, I'm very mixed on. The action, like I said, and horror are great, especially for Nick Cage as Dracula and scenes of the hospital. Unfortunately, the Nick Cage scenes were the only parts that hit with comedy. Most of the comedy attempted in this movie was done through cheesy lines of exaggerated dialogue, and it was not really good. It's kind of, we've come to a point now in movies where a lot of movies kind of try a bit too hard with the over-exaggerated dialogue, especially the MCU. There's always been a large problem with that. I remember when I saw Thor Love and Thunder last year, that movie was so bad because literally there was a joke every 5 freaking seconds. And we just come to a point in Hollywood where I don't know why they keep doing that. I mean, they just try too hard nowadays. I've seen it in a whole bunch of movies this year, like Scream 6. They try so hard with that comedy. It's not good. Only certain actors can pull it off well. And Nick Cage, like I said, Nick Cage, whatever jokes he was saying in this movie, the way he was expressing his face and all that stuff, that was actually funny. He was the only one that did comedy well in this movie. And everyone else, maybe Renfield, the line, it just didn't work for me. And especially certain one character that I'll get to in a sec was not funny at all and tried way too hard. Another, it's not really a negative or anything really truly mixed. It's just something that I wanted a little bit more of. And that's, while this movie had a great premise and the story worked very well, we could have sympathized with Renfield a little more. We could have had a few more reasons as to understand him better if his backstory had just been expanded and explained just a bit more. There's a bit of dialogue throughout the movie about how he made the mistake of becoming an enslaved person for Dracula after leaving his wife and child. Still, none of that is shown, and I would have loved the third act, especially more, if I had gotten a bit more just to see what type of pain, what that type of pain was like for Renfield. I just felt like things just kept moving a bit too fast, and we just constantly saw Renfield just doing things. And I wanted to know especially why he wanted to do those things. Just talk about it a bit more. Why exactly? Even though we know. Yes, you've told us, yes, that you had a wife and you had a child, and especially Dracula has used that against him. I wanted to see that a little bit more, just expanded, so that I could appreciate just a bit more of Renfield going against Dracula. All right, so now on to the negatives. Yeah, Aquafina in this movie fucking was horrible. I'm sorry, no disrespect to you, girl, but you are not a good actor. I don't think whoever wrote those lines for you, whether in the trailer or in the actual movie, I think you tried way too hard with them. I think it's also their fault, and whoever wrote your lines in this movie needs to be fired immediately because every scene that Aquafina as the character of Rebecca Quincy was in this film, I dreaded. And it dragged on, and I sat there and I really tried not to cringe every time she said something in this movie. Based on the line she said in the trailer, I could tell what her acting and writing for her character would be, and I was entirely right. But unfortunately, her acting in this movie just made me cringe. It was not horrible, but it was far from okay. This is because almost everything she said felt like a sarcastic teenager who didn't take anything seriously. And throughout the film, it felt like she was trying way too hard to be funny, and it did not work for me at all. But it's not her fault. Like I said, whoever wrote those lines needs to be fired. And never ever write for a film ever again, please. It is the same generic garbage stuff we've heard before. It was like MCU level acting. Like I said, Aquafina, I'm sure you're a great comedian. I'm sure you're a great actor, whatever. But this movie, you didn't work for me at all. I'm sorry. And I was not engaged with her story at all. Her part of the story about how her dad was killed by this mob family at all. It just wasn't explained well, and it wasn't really interesting because it's kind of generic. She was a very generic character, and I just wasn't engaged with it at all. And going further on that, it was just bland. And the film's only outstanding characters were just Renfield and Count Dracula. No one really stood out in this film except for those two characters because no one else was interesting. That's just my opinion, really, and that's really one of the main negatives that I have. I kind of preferred we had just focused on Renfield's story and not introduced this whole other side story with Rebecca Quincy. I understand what they tried to do because of all these burdens that she was faced with after her father's death, but it felt very generic, and we've seen it a million times in movies, and I feel like, like I said again, I think Rebecca Quincy could have been a little bit better. But in general, a lot of these characters in this movie just felt like a bunch of NPCs, just NPC level acting. So in general, guys, this was a very good film. I really enjoyed this film. It was a really great night. Lots more to talk about, which I will eventually do in the future. Nicolas Cage will always be one of my favorite actors, and he gave another excellent performance. Renfield's story could have been fleshed out more, but it was engaging and gave great lessons about taking control. A bit rough on the comedy, but great horror and action sequences. I'm looking forward to putting this film very high on my list for movies this year. Well, everyone, that's all from me. I will be doing more reviews soon. I don't know which film I'll be doing next. It may be a while, but we're going to get on to that. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to also like and subscribe if you like this review. Check out my other reviews. Check out my top 100 movies of all time so you can get an idea of what movies I really love. Please make sure to also follow my gaming channel, Depressed Jaguar. I'll leave a link in the description. I stream every Friday, usually at 8:30. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. But thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you liked, and I'll see you guys next time in the next review.